Okay, so we are live, and tonight we're live with Nick Glass, who is the founder of TeachingBooks.net. And Nick and I have known each other for quite some time. I don't know how many years we go back, but I've been a fan of TeachingBooks.net for a very long time. And I've also been a fan of Nick's. Nick has been a very supportive member of the library community, not only as the founder and developer of TeachingBooks.net, but he's also been on the Newbery Committee, if I remember correctly. And he goes to library conferences. I've met him at several. He speaks at library conferences. He listens to librarians. And Jane's with us now. He is, I also know that he's a baseball fan. And I think he may know more authors than anybody else in the library universe. And I'm going to have him tell us about TeachingBooks.net. And I wonder if you would mind if my students and also our faculty member, Jane, can interrupt with questions from time to time. Okay?
Please do.
Okay, Nick, why don't you introduce yourself first and then maybe introduce us to this fabulous platform.
Thanks, Joyce. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. And I appreciate the opportunity to share this digital resource that I built for a very specific reason. So my background is in educational policy and the history of multicultural education. And when I was doing my dissertation in Madison, I started thinking lots about how to equalize access to information that can make a difference. And at the same time, I started working in a kids-only bookstore called Pooh Corner. And while working in Pooh Corner bookstore, we started hosting authors, hundreds of them actually. I hosted hundreds of author events in a few years. And that was so awakening for me to see the response people had to having the author there, to meeting the author. It changed the way they related to that book, I think forever. You know, for example, I'd get notes a few years later from somebody who had met Christopher Paul Curtis, and that child still carried around his copy of Bud Not Buddy, which went on to win the Newbery Medal that year. And so those things are very, very powerful. And I thought, can we use this World Wide Web as an equalizer? The question that I keep thinking about and what's behind teaching books is what happens if we can change the way every reader can relate to that book at that moment of impact. That's what this is about. Can we get people to think deeper, to have meaningful connections to the book, either by meeting the author the moment they're reading the book, by having all kinds of really marvelous questions and vocabulary lists and text complexity rubrics and all kinds of instructional materials at that very moment? Can we build a library to supplement and support whatever book is being read by children and teens? Whether that's in a K-12 environment for independent reading, in a public library environment, in a teacher education space. The whole goal here behind this resource is to alter the way every reader relates to that book, whatever they're reading, at that moment of impact. So to do that, we've had to kind of do a number of things. So I didn't build this as a database. I don't consider this a database, and I don't consider myself or this as a vendor product, although absolutely it fits within those spaces. What I'm trying to do, and what all of us at Teaching Books are trying to do, is to say, can we help you connect and think about a book in richer ways, no matter who you are, where you are, and how, and no matter what book you're reading. So we've had to build this library of instructional materials that meet those goals, and then we have to build the technologies to make resources discoverable and accessible. And then we have to build tools to instantly give people these materials at the moment of impact in whatever environment they're in. They could be in an OPAC, they could be in a learning management system, they could be on their phone, they could be traveling the world, they could be whatever. So what we're trying to do is to take those on within this product. And I thought it'd be really interesting to kind of just share a little bit about, show you what Teaching Books is and how we've accomplished building that goal of equity, of building resources that matter, no matter what your goal is, and trying to recognize that everybody has different goals for different books. So it is a digital library based on those premises of intellectual freedom and an opportunity for every reader. But then there's this massive technology side too. So in about 15-minute breath, that's kind of what I was going to try to show you today. So before I delve into that, any questions?
Well, it's wonderful to know that not every school can afford to have a live author visit, and not every author is going to be available for a web visit at the point of need, and not every librarian has the resources to develop all of these reading extensions that you have. And so what you've done is really made it possible for every one of us to bring authors into the classroom and to develop true enhancements to the reading experience for nearly any book that's read K-12. And I'm very grateful for that, and I'm excited about you sharing what you've built, Nick. Anybody else? We have two students, Catherine and Amy, whose face is not showing at this minute. Any questions before, or Jane? Any questions before Nick gets started on the little tour?
So you can't see me, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
You talk, your face shows up.
Okay. I guess what was really exciting to me is part of your background is the multicultural education. So I'm actually taking a speed reading class. One of the books we're reading is Blink. And so in that, of course, he talks about the Martin Luther King effect and how just sort of having out there good examples of a multicultural people and sort of raises profiles and helps people to imagine sort of a greater diversity. And so I just kind of want to see as we go through the resource, kind of if you could point out like ways that can be incorporated.
Absolutely, those are very important elements, and I will very much do that. Let me give a little context and show you how this works a little bit.
Cool.
So the idea is that this is a digital library about resources for whatever books people are reading. The first thing to understand about teaching books is that there are 0 books on teaching books, not one. The books are in the libraries, in the hands of people, in the homes, in the backpacks, on the electronic devices. There are no books here. What we're trying to do is say, can we help you with a book? So it's all about this area called resources for my books. And then you can search for those books and resources in different ways. At the top of the screen, you can search by a title or an author or a subject or a list or award. You can search by grade levels, curricular areas, genres, or cultural areas, which plays into some of your thoughts, Amy. You can also search by different kinds of lists, your own reading lists. You can customize by reading programs, saying we use Lucy Calkins' units of study. These are the 5 books we're using in this particular class, and let's make sure every teacher, every student has the resources immediately for whatever they're reading. So let me show you a little bit about how this works. And I'll start by picking a book, probably the one book that I think is used. There are very few school districts that don't use this book, from my experiences, is The Giver. It's just it's a very popular and appropriately quality text. So you have here, again, no books, but you have resources. So I'm gonna just make it a little larger for accessibility purposes. You can see the table of contents in this gray box. We have annotations, lesson plans, vocabulary lists, audio performances, interviews, information about the awards, text complexity information, annotations, all these different things about the book. Again, no books. So what I like to say to people is, oh, you're reading The Giver. Have you ever had Lois Lowry in your classroom before? And people laugh at me like, no, I can't afford to do that. I'm like, well, here she is. So why can't you have Lois Lowry here right now at that moment of impact? Because we have a movie that we put together from her home where she describes the writing process, how she went about writing her book, how she created the setting of the text, all in a 3-minute movie. And so you can play that for your students. Or a reader in a public library can then have that particular author with them when they're reading the book, which I'll show you in a second. Or you can have a vocabulary list. what's so special about our vocabulary lists is that they have the example word, they have the context in which the word is used. So the word, the definition, but then the sentence taken directly from the text. So now the teacher who's so busy, who we want to help enrich their instruction and meet their instructional goals, can have those connections. We have lesson plans from all around the web that we've evaluated. We have a collection development policy managed by professional librarians who make sure that all of our resources meet the goals of that, and then we integrate materials from around the web into one place. So we have here links from Literary Link or Holt McDougall or Read Write Think or book clubs or publishers and so forth. But when you click on one of these, it's going to take you directly to that spot on the web where those particular questions and materials are. You don't like that, you can close that and go to a different one. So it's all these different bits of information about whatever book that you're reading. So any student can say, oh, I'm reading a particular book. Is there a book anybody has in mind that's used in a curriculum, or you want me just to grab one?
My son loves the Warrior books.
The Warrior books?
Yeah. From Aaron Hunter, the Warrior Clan.
Oh, sure. So you can look up a series. So I can look up Warrior. And then I'll see the Warrior series here. It's actually this one here, Gods and Warrior series, isn't it?
No, it's the cat one.
It's the cat one?
Yeah, he's in 6th grade.
Got it.
Yep.
So now you have, oh yeah, there they are. And so now you have all those 28 titles in one place, broken up by the way they were put together, and you have all the different materials for them. So you can click on one, and then you'd have lesson plans or different kinds of materials and reading levels and so forth. Or you can look up a book that someone's reading in a curriculum. It could be a classic text. It could be, House on Mango Street.
Yeah,
and then you'd have your lesson plans, your materials, that you'd even have a recording with Sandra Cisneros reading a little bit of the text. So she can be here right now when you're reading the book, sharing a little bit of it.
The three sisters. They came with the wind that blows in August, thin as a spider web and barely noticed.
So this is just enough of the book to have a struggling reader, an English language learner, or any reader get a sense of what it sounds like in their ear to help them connect. And there are many instructional values depending on who you are and what you're trying to do. So this library is filled with all kinds of materials. Like I said, though, you can also browse in different ways. You can say, I'm interested in nonfiction biographies about African Americans for my elementary school students. So I clicked on a search for nonfiction, and I got over 10,000 titles that have resources. But then I can use these narrowing tools, and this is how you use this consistently. You narrow by what you want, by your grade level. We want pre-K through 2. Let's say we want social studies, that's fine. And then we want biography. And then we wanted African American culture. So now we're down to 37 titles. Then I can say I trust the authority of book awards. So I want to have ones that won an award, or I can pick the award. Maybe you haven't heard of all the awards, so you can just say any award. And then you can say of these 17 titles, which of these have lesson plans, because I want lesson plans, because it's about the instruction. So these titles all have lesson plans that met those criteria. So as I go through this, I can then click on Through My Eyes by Ruby Bridges and now have a connection to that book that you wouldn't have known to have otherwise. You have 7 lesson plans and annotation, recordings, all these other kinds of materials about that text. So again, what we're trying to do is say, what are you reading and how can we help you? What are your needs? How can we enrich your connection? So you can search by all these different kinds of ways. And then the powerful part is once you understand that it's a library of resources, now I can show you how you can share it and how you can customize. So the way you share a resource is you look up what you're after. So let's say I'm interested in a particular book. I'm reading The Outsiders. So I can take The Outsiders here and have the lesson plans, vocabulary lists, recordings, text complexity information, all the kinds of data and information you want about the book. And now I can say I want to give that to the reader. If I'm the librarian, I'm in a public library setting, and there's a book club going on, and they're reading The Outsiders. Or I'm a teacher, and I want my students to have information about this, or I want the parents to feel more connected to the text, or I'm an academic and I'm learning how to teach this and I want to embed that for my students to be able to see the resources for the book I'm using. I hit share this page. And when I hit share this page, I get all these different options. I can embed that into my Google Classroom. I can put it into my Google or Outlook calendars or Apple calendars. I can give every single person a bookmark that automatically takes them directly to the resource. This is a slice and dice, there's 3 of them. So they can have that right there. I can email this resource. I can text it. I can do all these different connections. I'm trying to close the window. I just won't do that. I can do all these different things to help someone automatically have these materials. I can email it right to anybody. But the key with this is that it comes with authentication. Once I, as a user, sign in and use this resource, I can share this whole collection of materials directly with anybody that they want without having that obstacle, that barrier of what's my username and password? How do I use this resource? Where's the search mechanism here? I just wanted the materials for the outsiders. So I can even hone in on saying, I'm going to give this recording of Spike McClure reading a little bit of The Outsiders, and I can text that directly to anybody I want. And that recording will just show up now on their phone. So this is what I mean by changing someone's connection to a text at the moment of impact. So you can search by titles and share them, but you also can build a list. You also can say, what I need in my community is the following. We're doing a study on the great Latino texts that are, or let's just do an award. We want to do a search on LGBTQ, and we wanted books for middle school on that. And I wanted to put together a list of these books that of the ones I have in my collection. So now I can say add titles to a reading list, and I'm just going to pick a few of these that I think are terrific. And then let's pretend I had in my collection. I'll stop at that. So now I'm going to build this list of just some of the books that I have, and you can add to lists at any moment in time. And now I'm going to name that list, and I'm going to name that middle grade independent reading titles. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to emphasize, I don't have to say, I mean, I could have said it's about LGBTQ or not. I can change the order and the sequence of them. So I want people to maybe see George first, and then I want them to see Richard Peck's The Best Man third, or whatever. That's the sequence we're going to be reading them. And then I save the list. And now when I view that list, it's a customization of just the titles, the resources for just the books I need. 105 resources, 13 lesson plans, 14 videos for these 6 books that we picked. And now I go back to hitting share this page, and now I can go share this. I can put a flyer in my library about these particular texts, and with a QR code that sits there that will take someone directly to that. I can text that, I can email that. I can do whatever I want with that collection of materials. So we can we're a library of materials that then can be shared with every single person and customized for every need, breaking down barriers of access. So before I get into a little more of the instructional component of that, let me see if you have questions about how this resource is doing to its root of breaking down barriers and giving people connections to the books that they are reading at that very moment. Comments, questions, please.
Nick, I just had a comment or clarification. I think the students in the emerging literacies class, and great to see you here, Mary Catherine, have been studying about curation last week. So would it be correct to say that what you have done is you've curated resources, plus you've added value with additional author interviews or recordings?
Fabulous question, Jane. Let me show.
And the curation database is customizable as to how you extract it.
Right. Let's go from large
Is
to
that
small. Absolutely, Jane. And it's a phenomenal tool for trying to understand that. So we start with a mission and a goal, right, of what's going to be curated into our original collection. And then we help each user curate what they need. So the collection development policy is what guides what goes into teaching books at large. But then each person can say, I'm just interested in materials that meet my needs on graphic novels that are nonfiction for high school. And so that's what they're interested in finding out about. So I now have my graphic novels, nonfiction high school. I have 144 matching titles here for someone to consider. And then I want to know which ones just won awards. So now I have 30 of those. So now I can build myself that list so I can customize my curation, if you will. I'm going to select all of those because that's what I was trying to learn about. And now I'm going to call that my graphic novel, secondary graphic novel nonfiction collection, right? And so now what I have here is all of those materials, graphic novel, nonfiction collection. And so you can use this to learn about books, about in general by different data points. But then what's so tremendously powerful here is once you're viewing this list, I can now annotate it. I can leave my notes for my students or my audience for every single title. Read this on Tuesday. Pay attention to the following. You can sort them in all different kinds of ways. Because this is nonfiction, I want this sorted by year published. Or I want this sorted by reading level or word count or whatever it is that you're after. So you have all different kinds of ways to organize your collection and present that to your audience. Very much so. So yes, it's a very powerful tool for helping someone learn about books for what they want to get when you're also on a particular title. So let's say I'm on March book 1. And one other thing, a lot of little things we've done are things like, I call it March book with the number 1, but it's actually spelled, but it will still of course find it. We have a very complex alias system, if you will. Seuss is always misspelled. So, of course we have to have Seuss with the U first or the E first and all that kind of database stuff that I personally really enjoy. But then what you have here is when you're trying to think about curation, you can go to any title, and on the right side, it's going to give you all kinds of other ways to keep learning about the text, when it was written, genres, curricular areas. I can look at all the subjects. I can look at related books of what else was on these lists. So if I want a list of really great books on Black Lives Matter reads for teens, I now can see that this book was on that list. And so here's the relational database from that. And this comes from a very reliable source of the Hennepin County Library. And then we link to that library source. So it's all about demonstrating that authority so that you can feel comfortable as you're using it for your collection development and for your creation of your information and materials.
I have a quick question.
Please.
When you send out the link to students or you post it on Google Classroom, does it look like this for them when they, with all of the different searching?
Automatically. So let's say you wanted everyone to hear John Lewis. So one of the things we do is we call authors every day and we say, why did you write this book? So like if you want John Lewis here today telling you why he wrote March, here's a recording.
I am John Lewis, the author of March, book 1, book 2, and book 3. March tells the story of my life growing up in rural Alabama. And as a young child, I saw signs that said, white waiting, white men, colored men, white women, colored women.
And so forth. It's an amazing recording. So you want your students to read that, have that right there with them. So when I hit share this page and I embed this link, this permalink here, which could be either put in social media, classroom, your learning management systems. We're LTI compliant to fit into, your Schoology or your Canvas or your Blackboard or whatever various places, things that people are using. We're integrating into learning OPACs. We're right now in, for Follett, they have a software where people purchase books called Tidal Wave. Wherever people are, we're trying to put teaching books materials to help people have it at that moment. And when they click on that link, let me show you what that looks like. I'm just going to overlay whatever that window is. So it will look exactly like that, just what you saw, except it comes with authentication for that particular resource or list. So if I sent that whole list, if I wanted to share the list we made, let's say I wanted to share this middle grade independent reading titles list. So I click share, and then I grab that link. What it's going to do is it's going to give everybody access to all of the materials when they view that. But then if they try to search for Bud Not Buddy, they're going to be asked to sign in. So we can build subsets of resources based on saying, we know this is exactly what you need. Let me help you have it right now.
So just to be clear, Nick, some of my students are new students to this world, and authentication means that when you're at school, often there's IP authentication that's automatic. And that means students don't need to think about firewalls and passwords or anything. But when you're at home, sometimes you need to log into each of these systems individually, and that is a barrier for many students to access the databases, platforms, websites that we want them to use. And so what you're saying is when you send them these links or these texts or these QR codes, they do not need to deal with those barriers. And that's very, very powerful.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct on your description, and you're absolutely correct on what we're doing. Every barrier I can think of, we're trying to break down. So let's go back to the question about helping all people understand culture through literature and being empowered to talk about that. So I'm a white male, and I might not feel very comfortable talking about a culture that is very unfamiliar to me. Whatever that culture is, it could be socioeconomic culture, it could be a culture of disability, it could be a culture of race, it could be all kinds of things. And so what we did was I decided to, and for years, since I began teaching books, for 17 years now, I've been developing and collecting materials that are primary source for the purpose of helping someone who is, for helping anybody feel empowered to talk about culture. So we've interviewed pretty much every recipient of every major multicultural book award. So I'm currently, for example, co-chair of the Coretta Scott King 50th anniversary celebration, which is going to be in 2019. And so, but we have here pretty much every living recipient of the Coretta Scott King Book Award has been recorded. There's over 3,000 instructional materials to help you enrich your knowledge about that. But it's not just handing the book to somebody. That has no level of empowerment to it in my mind. What Teaching Books is trying to do is say, let me give you Brown Girl Dreaming, the book. Great. But now let me give you culturally relevant discussion questions. Let me give you the author talking about why she wrote the text. Let me give you a way to analyze the text from various qualitative text complexity measures so that you can then think through these culturally significant questions on knowledge demands and cultural knowledge and so forth. So there are so many ways that we're trying to use information and make it really easy for people to think about a book differently. But first we have to have the focus, and then we have to have the resources, and then we have to have the tools to keep breaking down barriers. And that is what teachingbooks.net is. And we're very, very lucky that right now about 1 in 4 schools in this nation subscribe to it, thanks to a number of state licenses in New York and Texas and Wisconsin and others. But we keep growing and trying to give out materials at any given moment for somebody to have the author there, to have these literacy connections if they're in a school environment. We need to honor their instructional demands and make sure they know how to think about balancing information and literary texts, how to think about ensuring students can demonstrate evidence of reading, thinking about author's purpose. What's better than author's purpose than the primary source materials where you can have these people there at that very moment, right? And so that's what Teaching Books is doing. It's a library of materials to connect people to the text the second they're reading the book. And there's tons of other elements to this that I invite all of you to freely try. And all you need to do to get in is just go to teachingbooks.net/Rutgers. And there's a way for you to sign right in and explore it and use it. And if you ever have questions or titles or things that we can help you with, You just hit contact and you let us know or call us. That's how we learn and grow and try to help every reader feel like they're more informed, they're more driven by that text because they saw a great video book trailer, or they met the author, or they have questions that really got them thinking, or they have vocabulary lists or rubrics or all kinds of connections that they wouldn't have known. That's what this is about. Happy to answer questions and go on I could go on forever, but I just wanted to stay within the timeline.
I don't think you're at all excited about this.
I love my work, of course, because we're trying to make a difference for reading.
I love it.
And I always have, Joyce, and you know that.
I know that. I have two questions, but I also want our students to ask questions, but mine I think are quick. So in 575, one of the things we recently talked about were reading motivation programs. Things like AR and some of the things that companies, for instance, Pizza Hut regularly puts out. And,
Sure.
you know, I have my serious bias about those things in terms of reading motivation, in terms of their long-term stickiness. What's your experience with teaching books and its encouragement and its impact on motivating reading?
First off, from a standpoint about different programs, I am program agnostic. I'm just delighted someone's reading a book and want to support it. If they're coming at it through trying to do an AR test, or they're a quiz, or they're at Pizza Hut and are given a book, or they have a book from whatever environment, I'm really jazzed and just want to help them. So from a root level, that's what we have. In terms of how we're doing with motivating readers,
yeah,
I think there are a lot of different things. If you're trying to motivate readers by having an adult in the community feel more informed to teach the text, because they were able to suddenly have, who's our featured movie here, to have Chris Roshka there right now when they're talking about his books because they watched this movie, and then being able to send the video home with the students so that everybody can then watch Chris Roshka in his home doing his painting, talking about how and why he does that. Those connections will increase engagement and knowledge. Have I defined that by a quantitative measure? No. And I won't also, because that's not my job to do research on my own product. I wouldn't do that. But we certainly know that, we're distributing, the site is being clicked on over, 1 point many millions of times a month. People are going through this, gathering resources, connecting to authors all the time. As we speak right now, I'm sure it's being used in hundreds of locations. And so, is it making a difference? I hope so. I think that the more ways people can also start imagining and saying, oh, I'm teaching Brian Selznick, I'm teaching Maya Angelou, and let's have her here right now when we read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Most people don't think of putting the author there at this moment, but that by having her here can be transformative, and that equals to me engagement. So there's multiple levels to my answer to that, but I think that I'm delighted when anybody's reading, and I want to support whatever their experience is. I don't hear you, Joyce.
I have another question, and then I want my students to think about the ways they might use this in a school or public library, and any other questions, of course, for Nick. My question is, in 530, for instance, we're looking at discovery search last week, actually, that's what we were doing. And so among the things that are happening is, that it's possible that teaching books would be included in a search that might actually go across a Destiny catalog and literature.
It is, yes.
And so imagine that I come across teaching books and I make a discovery about Maya Angelou. I listen to her interview. It's possible in the same search I could actually get to that very ebook and have a complete experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I could go from the resources, the motivation, the author interview to the book, and then back to the questions, and kind of back and forth within that one search. That's possible because you can be integrated with Discovery and there's a variety of other tools.
We certainly are integrated into a number of those what I think used to be called aggregated searches. You know, kind of these ways to let someone look across different databases, EBSCO's Discovery Services, or Search 365 and Snap and Destiny Universal Search, or all of those things. Teaching Books absolutely is and can be a part of in various ways. It takes a lot of work, though, for each of those companies. We have to work with them and try to figure out a mechanism for them to have that capability. And we've done a very good job of tying in part because of our responsibilities with some of our licenses.
And are you optimized for multiple devices?
So it's not, it will work fine on any device. It's not like it's flash driven or anything like that. But Teaching Books on a tiny phone is still the same thing. We don't have a separate web operating system that's for phones. So it still looks like this, but it's just compressed. So it's not the most fabulous for phones for searching, but that's exactly why I wanted to be able to say, let everybody hear, how do you say this name? Is it Maya Angelou or Maya Angelou? Let's find out.
Hello, my name is Maya Angelou.
So it's O, and then you can share that with everybody. And when you text that or email that or anything, it's going to look just like that, and everybody can hit that play button. That's not the hard part. The hard part is being able to search and navigate, and we're not very good at that at this moment. But that's why my dream is to be able to scan every single barcode on a book. And so we've been building this whole collection of ISBNs, of families of ISBNs, because we don't care whether you have the Braille or the audio or the hardcover or the mass market of Harry Potter. What we want you to do is have that resources for Harry Potter.
Okay, fabulous. All right, so Amy, Jane, Mary Catherine, questions for Nick?
Okay, I have a couple questions. So, do you have international authors?
Yeah, we've done a few things with international. First off, we're very Canadian-centric. We work with a lot of Canadian schools, so we have a lot of resources in French as well, the award-winning French authors. And then a few years ago, there's an award called the Hans Christian Andersen Award, which is kind of it's from an organization called IBI, the International Books for Young something. I don't forget what IBI stands for. But that award, we actually recorded the names of about 35 of the 50 finalists. So those were 35 people from different countries. So if you look them up, we'll have some, but basically not. We're focused on what's most read, right, in the English language schools. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to have resources for a lot of other things. We don't choose to pigeonhole an author by a location or a place or a nationality, because we let them do that by having their websites to find how they're choosing to self-identify. But I don't want to pick, for example, who's an author from New Jersey, because many people have lived there. Walter Dean Myers, certainly I would credit as a very significant New Jersey author. But yet his first reaction would probably be, well, I grew up in Harlem. I'm a New Yorker. And so I don't want to be the one to miscalculate or misdefine somebody through our data. But yes, if you're thinking of certain international authors, please take a look and see, and you can enjoy. You just go to search and you can pick author and go ahead. But there's not a way to search for who do you have from Hungary.
Okay. And then my other question was, I logged in and signed up through the Rutgers, and I thought I saw on it, and I can't figure out how to minimize this to look at it again, but I thought I saw something about a New Jersey list.
Absolutely.
So is that based on IP, or is it connected because I came through Rutgers?
Yes, because you're signed into Rutgers, which is a state university in a particular state. We knew you were in New Jersey. Now you could be looking up any state, and I can show you how to do that. But the New Jersey lists are the ones that we think a lot of people in New Jersey schools are using. They might use these for Battle of the Books. They might use these for we have users all around the world. So we have 50 countries and 50 states and so forth. But so here someone might say, we're using the Garden State nonfiction list here. So now they have here one list with 150 resources for these particular texts. And not only that, but we've already interviewed the authors, for example, these first three, right? So if you want to have, Sean Queltz here right now talking about how and why he did that, wrote this text, then you can, and so forth. So there's a lot. So we've already tried to build lists for people based on their geographic location, but it doesn't mean that you can't build your own list. We've just done a number of them for you. The same thing you could do is you could look up a topic. I'm interested in lists on bullying. So I could look up bully, and you'll get a number of tremendous lists of suggested titles from authoritative sources. So when I click on one of these, now I'm going to have their titles in one place to be able to help. So we have all, and you could also look up a different state. I'm interested in just knowing I'm in California, so what does California have? And then you're going to have all the California lists and so forth. There's a lot here.
Oh.
Does that help, Amy?
I think so. What do you think, Amy?
That's really cool. I was looking at it and going, I was trying to think, was it just New Jersey? I didn't think it was, but then I thought, oh, it probably is.
It's not based on IP, it's based on your sign-in. And
okay.
So you could be, I'm in California right now, but I'm signed in as Joyce, who's associated with the Rutgers University license. And there you have that. So yeah, that's all. We're trying to present. Let me go back to the question about engagement. I think people are more engaged when it's about them, what they care about. You care about New Jersey, or you might care about, if I'm an elementary school teacher, I care about elementary school books, but I don't really care about Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings professionally, right? So how can we help build this to be about each person? So every student, for example, in public libraries, we want our students in the summers to go in and create their own summer reading lists. This is what I'm hoping to read this summer. And then have their materials and be able to give their QR codes to their friends. I can trade my QR code with Joyce, and you guys can have it. We'll have our own lists and access to our materials and so forth. And they're beautiful displays. I mean, I think that the way we display books are relatively attractive for a digital display, with the covers, with the metadata. So if I go back to what a list looks like, I can go back to any award. If you want to explore, what are all the book awards out there? That are who's choosing the best books? I care about science. What are the awards for science? So now you have 6 awards that you might not have known about. And then when you click on this, you're going to have every title that's ever been recognized by the Cyber Medal since it began in 2001, and all the resources. And those are the displays. And it will tell you for each of these a little bit of metadata. Just enough, we think. And then you hover over a title, you'll even get more information. You'll get the word count, the reading levels. I like metadata because I want to help people. First off, I understand the relational database connections, the ways data can help people customize. But I also want to help people because I don't know what you want. Maybe all you cared about was word count. So I want to sort these by word count. So there I just have, and then I want to flip that. So these are little things that we've been adding over the years. They're not much, but the sum of them all make this customizable for each particular user's needs. And we're trying to reach every reader, and I never will know every reader, but I want to respect every reader and help them feel connected to what they're choosing to read, not what I'm telling them to read. Sure, I recommend Bomb to anybody, but it might not be what you need.
So yeah, so Nick, one thing that I find incredibly frustrating is the limited awareness of many teachers and also librarians of the state database purchase. And so you say you're in a quarter of the state resource list. Is that correct?
We're in 33 or 34,000 schools, which is about 1 in 4 schools in this country.
So if there is a librarian who is sharing this with the classroom teachers, then the classroom teachers have all these resources available for all of their students. And if there's no librarian doing that, it's very possible that all of these students are not discovering what is their right to use. And that seems a shame to me. And that's one of those things that keeps me up at night, that there are these fabulous things out there that we're buying for the students of our states, and they're not equitably accessed. And so this is as much a tool for teachers as it is for librarians, isn't it?
No, absolutely. So two responses to that. First off is, discoverability of anything, when you're dealing with the busiest people, anybody working in school is so swamped. They're trying to stay focused on task for what they're doing. And this is my perspective. All of you who work in schools, you can tell me your perspective. But then you have, on top of that, something they haven't been thinking about. Can we have Steve Sheinkin here right now talking about Bohm? And wait, what? I can have Roald Dahl in my classroom when I'm reading the BFG? What, are you kidding me, right? So how do we help them do that? So these sharing tools were designed to assist with that. For example, the number one way I encourage every school librarian to operate with this is to just ask this teacher, what are you reading right now? And they say, oh, we're reading Romeo and Juliet. And then we just say, great, let me just give you all these materials. And would you like them in your Google Calendar? Would you like them emailed to you? How would you like this stuff delivered? And then if a teacher wishes to look at it, they can. But once they see it, they'll be really happy. But it's very, very, very hard to even teach people that much because they're so busy. Just tonight, I was reviewing the stats for the state of Texas, where they're having all of the providers of all the statewide resources. There are 5 vendors, EBSCO, Gale, ProQuest, nonfiction, Matthew something, and teaching books. So we're with these big, huge companies, and I'm doing a very comprehensive analysis of the use and trying to see what percentage of institutions have discovered this and whether the trainings we've done have had an impact. And so I've been tripping off on that, really enjoying trying to think that through so I've got 10 minutes to present what insights I have as a vendor and as a provider to it's their right, it's their dollars, and they should get the most out of this. The good news is we never try to charge much, so I'm not too worried about it, but what I'm trying to say is it doesn't matter how much it costs. To me, it's about, can we help you learn of it? And that's why we've built all these tools. That's why I'm killing myself trying to figure out how to work with Microsoft, for example, right now, and Microsoft Education, because they don't understand that. But there's no one method and no one easy answer. But I'm constantly thinking about that, and I hired a whole team of amazing teachers to do teaching, so they do professional development. And then I made every single license required to come with training. And they get a minimum of 2 for their district, but they can have 20. But they have to take 2. In theory, they're charged an additional tiny bit for that, hoping that would trigger. If they're paying for it, maybe they'll do something about it. If it's free, they won't do it. I don't know. I mean, I of course, they're just so busy. And I don't know how to do more than that, Joyce, but of course it's going to keep all of us up at night.
Yeah, but I don't think it's only the busy part. I think it's the limited awareness that not everything is absolutely free and findable through Google. And this is just one of those examples. And I don't know how we can curate palettes or dashboards for teachers and students so that it's as easy to get to these things. But there are so few, there aren't as many librarians as I would hope who are making these things available through a discoverable front page. And sometimes, as we've been talking about in class, well, it's really even hard to get to the library link from a district homepage. So these are things we can advocate for. And the other thing that, a point that you bring up in terms of the RFPs and the states is that we have a voice. And, in Pennsylvania, I would always be talking to the Power Library people saying, hey, wait a minute, why did you drop this? Or we need this. Or I'd speak to a friend of mine who I knew was on that committee, or I'd find out who was on the committee. But and one of the questions that came up in the chat is teaching books available in New Jersey right now? No, and it wasn't it?
Not really. It's not even licensed by Rutgers. I mean, it's there are a number of school districts that have it. There's just a handful, in part because it takes word of mouth to even learn. My advertising budget is 0. I started, this is not EBSCO. I don't have papers here to show you what teaching books looks like. Yeah. It's a very different model of which I'm operating, and it's word of mouth and it's experience and And then it's about helping it be used to make it relevant. And that's why I wanted these sharing tools to be so powerful, so that a teacher could just give and share and embed and put that right into these learning management systems. The licenses that are doing the best with teaching books, I was trying to go to New York City Reads 365, which is an independent reading project of theirs. And for some reason, the website didn't work. But they've integrated links to teaching books for every title within their LibGuides. And that generates 10,000 connections a month, because it's what people are already told they're going to be using Reads 365. The chancellor gets up and says, our kids are going to read. Parents, go to this website. And then they get there. Behind it is teaching books. I don't care if they ever learn what teachingbooks.net is. I want them to have the resources to enrich their connection to whatever they're reading. That's the goal.
So somebody very intentionally, so the entry point is not teaching books for that. Somebody very intentionally went into LibGuides and curated this for the titles, and the titles in the LibGuides are the entry point, and that's the work of librarians.
Correct. I did it. Actually, we did it for them on their behalf. And we do this on behalf of any one of our customers. They tell us, here's the titles we're reading. Here's the reading programs we're using. We give them the links. We just built a tool so that a list could be owned by the 3 elementary school librarians that are working on their own Battle of the Books list, or the 5 high school grade 9 English teachers could have one list, and then they can share it and own it and adjust it as they need. But students can't, right? It's only owned, but it's not owned by just one person anymore. We're trying to keep figuring out how to help those things then be embedded wherever the teachers and students are meant to look. That's why we have to fit into Schoology and Canvas and Blackboard and Moodle and ClassLink and Clever and blah, 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 blah.
It's exhausting thinking about all these places that you've got to think about. But let me respect your time, because I don't want to take too much, and we want to not have a very long recording. But Amy, Mary Catherine, Jane, any final questions of Nick?
I guess my only question is, since you can access some of the things without having what is available without having the license if you're not in a school or state that has the license?
Sure. The parts that are free are, first off, anybody can search all the way down to a title level. So if I looked up the one and only Catherine, you'd see all of this. And then when you clicked on a resource you wanted, our recording with Catherine Applegate, you'd be asked to sign in. So you can see everything, you can search anything. I'm really trying to teach people this concept, so I wanted to let them get as close as they can. And then I built one collection that I made completely free, and it's this author name pronunciation guide, which started with one author trying to help everyone know how to say E.L. Konigsberg.
Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. And now we have 2,300 authors that we've recorded. And it's kind of this ridiculous collection, and we made that free, and it's beautiful, but it's kind of silly, right? But it's also really, really meaningful, because to me, it's all about honoring people. We're trying to honor our teachers and students to think deeper, and we're trying to honor anybody reading these books to know, how do you say Cornelia Funke or Maya Angelou or Juji Morales or, this guy? How do you say his name? He wrote Lightning Thief, and I go to Texas all the time. They don't necessarily know how to say his name. I won't tell you. I'll let you listen. But that's completely free. And the power of what Teaching Books does is it's not just aggregating and creating and licensing materials, but it's putting them into these tools that then on their own break down barriers of access. That's the crux of it all. And that's where we're so focused as we begin to think about how do we support Readers Advisory, which is one of our next big projects. What can we do to help people go from one book to a next? Not in a way that, I love Novelist. It's a fabulous Readers Advisory tool. It's the creme de la creme. But not everyone can have Novelist, but if they have teaching books, how can I help them get closer to those titles and all those things? So we're always thinking and trying to grow to support those needs. But what's free, you can go to the website. Anything on our homepage is free. Every day we feature new books, award-winning books, and we built a calendar to help people see what's going on each particular month in terms of literacy. And then you can embed these things. There's widgets, so you can have on your homepage in your school these things, and actually anybody can embed that. It doesn't require a license for that either.
So while my students are still students, they can use these with their own students, yeah?
Sure. Yeah, sign in, use the Rutgers account. The trial, I can extend it right now, Joyce. I don't know what we set it for, whatever you told me.
Yeah, but we're gonna have
Right.
this.
I can take that further, but
Yeah.
whatever you guys need. But try all the different kinds of things. There's so much here. And if you have suggestions, please just send a note, or my name is Nick, it's Nick @teachingbooks.net. This is how we learn. And if there's things that are missing, tell us. We're very current, but it doesn't mean we don't have the book that you need, or we don't have enough resources for what you need. And I just had a great conversation about what's street lit and how are we going to support that. And yeah, what do I know? So I had to do all this research and learn all about that and talk to the experts on that.
Yep, we had a conversation about that last week. Well, anyway, Nick, I'm going to stop the recording, but I just want to thank you so much for your time and your energy, and for all you've done in building this fabulous platform. I love it, and I hope my students feel the same. And I can see so much value in the classroom, for our book clubs, for our lit circles. I hope you guys see the same value. So thank you again, Nick.
Thanks.
Stop the recording.